Have you been injured by gluten? You may be entitled to compensation. No, it's not the gluten that's injuring you. It's the glyphosate. The reason why we have GMO crops is because if you put glyphosate, Roundup, I'm just going to call it Roundup for the rest of the video. If you put Roundup on regular crops, they all die because Roundup is herbicide. So in 1996, Roundup, Monsanto came out with genetically modified crops that allowed them to be hosed down with Roundup and not die. It's an important date because those of us who are middle aged remember when you'd never heard of anything like a gluten allergy, and also remember when peanuts were okay. Another video for another time, just like the video on the fact that Roundup turns frogs gay and what that may have to do with our current situation. Another time. According to the FDA, 63% of our food is full of Roundup. But we shouldn't believe them, right? I mean, those guys, come on. According to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, it's 90%. Now, Roundup is a endocrine disruptor. Um, Anybody who knows anything about diabetes will understand what I'm getting at right now. But type 2 diabetes epidemic, obesity epidemic, and gluten intolerance epidemic, all of which have come about in the last 30 years or so. Remember that date? 1996. That's when the GMOs came out that allowed them to hose down everything with Roundup. Now, you can't use GMOs in Europe. So people go to Europe, like myself, for instance, that have a little bit of problem with bread and such. You go to Europe, you get all the bread and pasta you want, you're fine. You come back here and you have a couple of slices and you're sick. You want to know why? It's not because they don't use GMOs. It's because without being able to use the GMOs, the farmers have no incentive at all to hose down their entire crop with Roundup. Because if they did, it would kill everything. Kind of like it's doing to the rest of us. Gluten diseases are up 17 or 7.5% year over year since 2000. Best numbers I could find are 5 years old. It's now 13% of the population. For the last 8,500 years, 0.08% of the population had a problem with gluten. 8,500 years. And then all of a sudden in 1996, so around the beginning of the 2000s, we started having all these problems with the gluten and the obesity and the diabetes epidemic. It's because Roundup disrupts your endocrine system, and that's why it makes you sick. Celia, anybody who knows anything about these diseases, they're all autoimmune diseases, and when you disrupt your endocrine system, that's what you get is autoimmune. If 90% of the wheat is full of it and 75% of everything else, all of the soybean oil and everything, I mean, it's very bad. But it's not the gluten. It's the stuff we're letting them put on our food.